Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today we have just watched Season 2, Episode 5 of The Mandalorian, called The Jedi. This is going to be a full spoiler review, as always, so if you haven't seen the episode, get out of here. Go away. I don't know why you would watch this if you haven't seen the episode yet. That's so weird. Okay, so, wow. Alright, a lot of stuff happened. Let's just start with a recap, as always, and then I'll go into, what happened. Okay, so basically this is the premise again of this episode is actually pretty standard stuff. It's what it implies in the stuff they dropped in here that is the big stuff. So kind of like last episode where it's like the premise is pretty simple, but it's the stuff inside it that's like, okay, this is the big stuff that we got to talk about. Okay, so basically as we know, Mandalorian is headed to this planet where he is supposed to meet Ahsoka Tano. That's where we left off. And right away we see Ahsoka we see her first live action ever, and it's crazy to see. Look, the thing I was worried about most was how they were gonna make the head prop, the what are they called, that the Torutans, whatever, that they have on their head, the horns, right? Like, I was worried how those were going to end up looking. And I think they made the right choice here. They did have to shorten some of the horns, and they had to, angle some back. Because you gotta understand, an actor needs to be able to actually move. An actor and a stunt person needs to be able to actually move while having these things on their head. So it makes sense. I knew they were gonna have to alter it somehow, because if you watch Star Wars Rebels, the little things, the horns on the side were really long, and the other horns on top were really tall, and I'm like, okay, well, that's going to be awkward to actually try and do stunts in. So I knew the translation was going to have to make some changes, and I know some people are already upset about that. We'll go into other things, but for me the look really worked. I think they made the right choice on shorten these things, angle those horns back. I think they made the right choice there. I knew they were going to have to be different because it's just practicality. That's why in the prequels, Shakti, she had these crazy horns, but you never saw her do anything but stand there because that actor can't really run with those horns on. The wind resistance alone would they'd knock the headpiece off, so they had to do something, and I'm glad with what they did. Anyways, you see Ahsoka on this planet. She's taken out all these guards outside of this walled off city, and she's just brutal. She's killing everybody, and at first I was like, is this very Jedi-like? She's taking everybody out. What's happening? And I know she's not a Jedi, but I just, I was like, she's being pretty kind of dark a little bit, because she's just taking these people out, and I don't have context as to what's happening here. And she's looking for some piece of information. And so my first thought is this has to be something really valuable for Ahsoka Tano to be on this planet for some piece of information that from people we've never seen before. There must be more to this, because last we saw, she's dealing with Ezra and Sabine and all that stuff, which, by the way, just get this out of the way, that's not mentioned at all. Sabine, Ezra, not mentioned at all, which, I guess I get why they wouldn't go into it now, because, this is about the Mandalorian meeting Ahsoka. Mandalorian doesn't know these people, so that whole plot line being brought up with Ezra and Sabine, it wouldn't mean anything to him, and it would seem to kind of come out of nowhere, right? The episode wouldn't be his anymore at that point. So I get why they didn't bring that up, but also, it's a few years later, so I imagine that plot line may have been resolved already. Maybe not. We'll talk about that again later. But in any case, she's here at this city, and she's trying to get some kind of piece of information. And so the next day, Mandalorian shows up, and he shows up at that same little city town area. It was like a town. It wasn't a city. It was a really tiny place. Where the villagers seem to be basically their town's taken over by whoever these people are, these armed guards and whatever's going on in this situation, which I have a lot of questions about. But basically he shows up there, and they let him in, and they offer him the job to hey, go kill this Jedi for us. and we'll give you this Beskar spear, right? Like that's going to be his payment, which of course Beskar, you know, is very valuable, so it's like, yeah, he'd take that job. But obviously Mandalorian's not really going to do it. Like, you know, right away he's like, well, he's looking for that Jedi anyways, so he's just kind of fishing for information, like, okay, yeah, I'll take the job. Not really, but tell me where you can find the Jedi. And so he goes out there and he meets Ahsoka, and right away Ahsoka tries to attack him. Like, she goes for like a death blow right away. And so again, like, I don't know, I had the feeling that like Ahsoka's not even, like, she doesn't even know this guy, and she just immediately tried to kill him. So I don't know, I was like, Ahsoka's kind of dark in this episode. That was my main feeling. I was like, she's kind of, you know, she's not evil, but it definitely feels like, I don't know, maybe she thought he was one of those guards or something, but she just immediately went for the death blow. But we did get some important information here immediately, is that he's able to block the lightsabers with his Beskar, right? Like his little gauntlets. And I've known that Beskar is like resistant to lightsabers, but I didn't know to what degree, you know? But this definitely feels like, oh, they can straight up block lightsabers, which I kind of want to think back now, like, in Rebels and Clone Wars, have we ever seen a lightsaber go through any of the armor? And now I kind of want to wonder, like, is all Mandalorian armor Beskar, or do some Mandalorians have armor that's not actually Beskar? It's like some other kind of metal because they don't have enough Beskar or something. Because I don't know, it feels like this would have been brought up more often in the Star Wars canon if this could always have been done. You know, I think back to Jango Fett, and Mace cut his head off, you know, where there wasn't any armor, just on the neck, right? So it's like, okay, I can see how that was able to happen. I don't know, it just makes me want to go watch Rebels and Clone Wars again and be like, okay, is there, like, does anyone get slashed with the lightsaber on the armor? Because I can't tell if this was like permanently well established in the canon before this. But in any case, now we know he can literally block lightsabers with his gauntlets, which I imagine will come in handy at some other point. You know, that was not an accident that the show showed us that. And basically, you know, she's immediately like, oh, hey, what's with the Baby Yoda over there? And she sits down and she kind of meditates with Baby Yoda, and they have like a not a discussion, but she's just like looking at Baby Yoda and like feeling each other's feelings or whatever. And immediately we get our big piece of information. One of them, Baby Yoda's name is Grogu. Grogu. Okay, now Baby Yoda getting a name was always going to be like a controversial thing. Many people always insisted he doesn't need a name. And a lot of people, like, they officially want to call him the child, and almost nobody does that. Pretty much everyone across the internet has agreed Baby Yoda is what we're going to call him. Even though we know that's not actually his name. Now we know it's Grogu. And I personally do not imagine that Grogu is going to be immediately accepted. Maybe if the name Grogu is consistently used throughout the show, like from this point on, if Mando keeps on calling him Grogu, and we're like on season 4 and he's still just calling him Grogu now, then I can see people finally like accepting it, be like, okay, fine, I'm just calling him Grogu. That's the new hashtag, I guess. But it's gonna be a while. Like, we have to kind of deprogram ourselves from hashtag Baby Yoda, you know, because that's what people always have been Google searching this whole time. That's what all the merchandise that people make on Etsy or whatever is called. It's all called Baby Yoda stuff. So it's gonna take some adaptation. So I imagine that's gonna be an online conversation of like, okay, who's accepting this name and who's just gonna stick with Baby Yoda? That's gonna be a thing for sure. So what we learn is that Baby Yoda was a youngling on Coruscant, and he had many Jedi Masters, and he disappeared after the Clone Wars. Somebody hid him away. I imagine there's a really interesting story there. And after that, she said his memories get dark after that, and she doesn't really go into it. So I don't know if that means she couldn't read his memories past that point. So a lot of things are suddenly thrown at us besides just the name. So he's 50. So obviously it makes sense that, like, yeah, he would have been there before the Clone Wars. And it also, him being as powerful as we're assuming he is, it definitely makes sense that he was at the Jedi Temple. Like, a Jedi had found him at some point and he was being trained. So that makes sense. But also because he's still a youngling, and he will be a youngling for a long, long time until he's able to, you know, speak and, you know, all that stuff, right? And until he's the equivalent of a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old, he's not going to become someone's Padawan. So he's just going to be a youngling for like a while, right? So it makes sense. It all fits. The timeline works. Everything works, right? There's definitely a lot of interesting things here, because now you gotta start wondering, like, was he trained by Kit Fisto and Plo Koon and then Khadu Mundi? Was he trained by all these other Jedi? And there's like all kinds of stories this opens up about Baby Yoda's past, because essentially what you've done now is you've opened up the floodgates of the prequel content for Baby Yoda, and you can be like, okay, did Yoda train Baby Yoda at any point? It definitely could have happened. So it's like very interesting. Who hid Baby Yoda when the Order 66 was going down? Somebody hid him. Wouldn't it be some kind of crazy ass twist of events if Anakin, in the middle of slaughtering all the younglings, was like, you know what, I'm gonna save this baby? I don't think that's what happened, but I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of crazy things that are now open to possibilities. We could definitely gonna get like a prequel novel or a prequel comic all about Baby Yoda's timeline to get to where we saw him in episode 1. Like, because there's a whole history there. Very interesting. And then who hit him after that, you know? So anyways, lots of information thrown at us, a lot of possibilities that are now open. Very, very exciting stuff there. And more than anything, this episode was like a setup episode. This episode set up a lot of stuff. But anyways, let me continue with the plot. Basically, they do this test with Baby Yoda. They try to get him to lift this rock. She realizes that Baby Yoda is so attached to the Mandalorian that she doesn't want to train him, because he has this attachment, and that'll open up his fears of maybe losing the Mandalorian one day, you know, thus leading him down the dark side. And basically, she knows that that's exactly what happened to Anakin, was that he was trained while he had this attachment to his mother, thus opening the dark side to him, you know, the fear of losing her. So she kind of sees that, like, hey, and she doesn't name drop him, but she's literally like, you know, I've seen what that fear can do to even the greatest fully trained Jedis of us, the greatest of us. You know, so she has a point. Some people were afraid that they were going to make Ahsoka like Luke from The Last Jedi, where he's just done with the Force and he's done with the Jedi entirely. So it wasn't that situation, but it was almost a similar situation where she's like, no, this kid, he's already formed attachments, and he's you know, fear is already like a thing for him, which makes sense, because, you know, obviously when season 1, Baby Yoda chokes Cara Dune when they're arm wrestling, because probably to Baby Yoda, he thought that Mandalorian was in trouble, and so he's immediately like, okay, well, I'm gonna kill this person. Like, that's, you know, so we've kind of seen that hint of like, okay, the fear and the anger is already there in him, and that's probably what Ahsoka is seeing. So that all makes sense. It tracks, right? But basically what happens is that Mando's like, hey, I will help you take out these people in this town, whatever it is you're after, if you train Baby Yoda. And she's like, okay. And so they go on this whole thing where they sneak into the town, they take everybody out, a bunch of action sequences. Ahsoka's running on rooftops and flipping everywhere, and it's all really cool, right? And it basically ends where I'm trying to make sure I don't forget anything. Oh, there was like a small shot of you can see it on the screen for a second. There was a small shot of what we can assume was the owl thing. I forget its name. The owl thing that we always see with Ahsoka. You can kind of see it on a tree branch for like a second. I'm assuming that was it. Anyways, so they go all the way in there and they take everybody out. They're saving all the prisoners. Mando has like a kind of a showdown with this guard guy. He's a famous actor, but I cannot place his name, and I cannot place what movies he's been in, but I know he's a famous actor. But he has like a showdown with like the the right hand guard dude. Meanwhile, Ahsoka goes into the main temple and she has a fight with the lady she was talking to, the lady in charge, with her Beskar spear. And my first thought was like, okay, this lady's kind of holding her own against Ahsoka, which seems strange. She must have been trained by somebody. And Ahsoka's like, where's your master at? My mind immediately went to like, oh, is her master like a dark side Ezra or something? Like, because I'm trying to like logically, like, how is she able to fight Ahsoka right now? But she beats her, and it ends with, she's like, where is Grand Admiral Thrawn? Okay, so Ahsoka does not know where Thrawn is, and last we saw, she was looking for Ezra with Sabine, who we know Ezra and Thrawn would be together. So this definitely sets up that maybe they have not solved that plot line. Maybe Ezra is still missing as well, and is wherever Thrawn is, which then of course leads to the question, then where is Sabine at? If the mission isn't complete yet, what happened to Sabine? I guess we'll find out at some point. And there's also, of course, there's like rumors of a Thrawn and Ezra show. This kind of opens that up. And that's what I meant by like, this is basically the setup episode, where it's like, okay, you kind of open the door to an Ahsoka show. You open the door to a Thrawn and Ezra thing happening. And you open the door to like Baby Yoda's past, or Grogu's past, which it's going to take a while to get used to saying that name. A lot of interesting stuff happening there. And then before they leave, he's like, all right, here's Baby Yoda. You're gonna train him, right? And she's like, no, you're like his dad, and I can't train him, because he's basically, Baby Yoda is just too attached to the Mandalorian, which right away is interesting, because then it's like, we'll talk about that in a second. Hold on. Basically what she tells him is that, hey, go to the planet Tython and put him on they said like a seeing stone or something like that on the top of a Jedi temple, and he will be able to decide his fate there. So this is interesting, because I know Tython from the Dawn of the Jedi comic books, where it was like, before the Jedi Order, there was the Jedi Order or something, and this was like the original, like even before like Octu times. Like this is like way back then, you know. That's what I know Tython from. It was like the first like planet of Force users, basically. So it's interesting. I don't know what they're gonna do with this in canon. I know Tython is already a thing in canon, but it's not like, it doesn't have the level of importance in canon as it did back in Legends, at least not yet. But if there's a Jedi temple there, and there's like some kind of seeing stone, and I don't know what's gonna happen. Like I'm honestly like up in the air now, because I think the whole show I've been under the assumption that Baby Yoda, his eventual fate down the road, he'll either be a Mandalorian or he'll be a Jedi, you know. But it definitely feels like, especially because Ahsoka kind of had a point where Baby Yoda, he's got too much of an attachment to Mando, and that being the case, maybe he won't ever be a Jedi. Maybe he'll be more of like a, you know, it feels like he could just kind of be what Ahsoka is, where she's like, you know, she's a light side user, but she doesn't call herself a Jedi, unless she does now. I don't know. Does she call herself a Jedi? I'm gonna have to watch the episode again, because now I'm kind of wondering, like, is she open to referring to herself as a Jedi? Because she kept on saying like there's not many Jedi left, this and that. So I'm like, are you still like, oh, I'm not a Jedi kind of thing, or have you kind of turned around on that? I don't know. Also, she did not mention Luke Skywalker at all, and some people were really hoping for that, and other people were really hoping that doesn't happen. I think logically it would have made sense for it to happen, because, you know, you don't become part of the rebellion in post Return of the Jedi and not know about Luke Skywalker, right? Like, he's the hero of the rebellion. He's a general in the rebellion. He's the hero of the rebellion. He stopped the Emperor for now, you know. So you would know about him. Ahsoka should know about Luke Skywalker. It wouldn't really make any sense for her not to. But really all they ended up saying was that take him to Tython, put him on the Seeing Stone, and then she did mention that it's possible other Jedi would come looking for him if they sense his presence on Tython, which I suppose does open the door for a Luke Skywalker type of appearance. It's there, or maybe other Jedi. Maybe that's how they meet Ezra, or who else is alive? The one from Fallen Order. Why am I blanking on his name? He might still be alive. There's a couple that could still be alive, maybe, but it definitely. I was kind of waiting for the hint of Luke or something, only in the sense that, based on the timeline where they're at in this show and the level of fame and basically a legend at this point that Luke would be for everything that's happened in the original trilogy, Ahsoka would know who he is, and she should almost be like, yeah, go find Luke Skywalker, he'll help you out, something like that. I don't know. In any case, there's a lot of doors open here. We got Baby Yoda's name, some of Baby Yoda's past. We got Thrawn is still out there somewhere. Is he in charge of these guards and people, or was that like a separate thing, or what's the deal with that? Really, that's a big question. Yeah, this opens up the whole idea of the Filoni-verse, as has been rumored, of all these different shows that are all going to be interconnected. It definitely feels like this was the setup episode for all of that. And I honestly don't know what's going to happen for the rest of this season. I thought that Moff Gideon was going to show up with those Dark Troopers, because he's tracking Mando, right? But that did not happen. We didn't see Moff Gideon at all. So that he's still tracking Mando, but I'm kind of wondering now, is he going to be interrupted on the way to Tython and he's going to crash somewhere else again? Is there going to be another ship crash sequence where he's like, oh, I got shot down on the way to Tython? It feels like that might happen. I don't know what's going to happen there. There's a lot of questions now. There's I think we all need to sit and just stew about this for a minute, because what's going to happen for the remainder of this season of the show, and what's going to happen with what we can pretty surely say is going to happen with the Ahsoka show and this Thrawn and Ezra thing. And then there's a lot of things that are open now. Like if you thought that last episode opened up the floodgates to theories and stuff, now we're even more okay, it feels like almost anything could happen, because I where's this going? I don't know. And it definitely opens up the bigger question of what is Baby Yoda's fate now, Grogu's fate? Because if Ahsoka doesn't think he should be a Jedi, it's so what then? What happens to him? He's something has to end up happening to this kid. I'm sure they have an answer. So I'm very interested as to what happens on Tython now. Are we gonna see glimpses of the original Jedi and the big pyramid thing that was supposed to be there back in Legends? I don't know, maybe it's possible. Anyways, a lot of stuff happened, and once again, the actual plot of this episode of okay, he goes there, they stop these people, they get a couple of name drops, and then they free this village, right? That's pretty much all that happened. But the implications of all the stuff that happened, the name drops, the Easter eggs, I guess if you call them, not really, but that's the big stuff. So anyways, let me know what you guys think about this episode, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.